Hello everybody and welcome back to The Way We See It. Today you've got double trouble of Lucy mindset coaches. So you've got two of us today, back to back, slightly different accents, mind you. But just to share a little bit today, we're going to talk about a few things. We're going to talk a little bit about Lucy's story, but we're also going to be talking a lot around kind of finding your passion and finding passion in your work. I think is going to be a big topic for today. So Lucy Hunt, I mean, obviously I know a bit about your background, but I would love for you to introduce yourself and I guess explain a little bit about what you do and how you got to where you are from wherever you were before.
Okay, perfect. First off, thank you so much for having me on. It's not usual for me to be the interviewee. I'm used to being on the other side. But no, this is lovely. So basically, to give a slight background as to who I am and what I do, I'm a bit of a look at us all sort, but first and foremost, the main thing about me is that I am somewhat in the fitness industry. However, my main priority is dealing with mindset and mental health in the fitness industry. This is slowly branching into sort of lifestyle coaching. Now, I mainly focus on mindset, just like yourself. However, due to the current circumstances and the current situation, I'm finding this kind of stemming into lifestyle coaching because, you know, people aren't getting outdoors, people aren't getting their usual stimulation. So by providing, you know, a bit more structure, and I have got the knowledge, I have got the education, I do have the qualifications for nutrition and training. I just personally always valued psychology and neurology and what the brain's doing behind everything more so than, you know, what we're actually doing, because there's so many people that can help with that. But as I said, I am a look at us all sort because I also have another business in which I'm a dog groomer, which is the complete other end of the spectrum. And to give a quick run through to how I got to where I am now is I've done everything. I think I've tried every job under the sun. I was a bit of a lost soul. I would say for the first 21 years of my life, 21, 22 years of my life, I was a very lost soul, didn't know what I wanted to do, didn't know where I was headed, didn't know where my passions lay, didn't know where my skills were. And I've, like I say, I've tried many different jobs, waitressing, beautician, hairdresser. I've done bookkeeping, I've done cleaning, I've been a nail tech, I've been a masseuse, I worked for STV, I worked for Sky. Like, I think I've done quite a few different jobs. And it was actually my granddad who kind of sat me down and was like, right, okay, we need to have a chat. We need to work out where you're actually going with this, because we really need to work out where you're going. And it was him who said that I either needed to work with people into improving their lives, or not improving their lives, that's probably not the right way to put it. Improve their way of viewing their lives is probably a better way of putting it, or with animals, because I was always good at both of these areas. I got involved with the fitness industry about 5 years ago, and from there I just built a passion with helping others, because people started seeing a transition in me, not just my physique and the way I looked, but how I was as a person. And I just dove straight into it, and with that I then decided to set up my business in dog grooming on the side, because why not? So that's probably the best sort of background I could give on myself.
Yeah, totally. And obviously I love that everyone knows who follows me knows I'm a dog obsessed with my two. They're like crazy. Yeah. Although I may need some advice with Jasper. He refuses to be groomed. Like, you know, he's tried to kill 4 dog groomers. So
oh Lord.
I'm back to square one. We'll talk about that off air.
Yeah.
But obviously you touched on something really important there, which for me, which I see a lot, and I've seen in myself, definitely. And that not knowing what you want to do when you grow up concept, right? Yeah. I always say to people now, I'm 33 and I have no idea what I want to be when I grow up. I just know that I'm going with the flow, and I'm doing what I love now, and if I can monetize it, amazing. If not, then I need to find something to monetize to allow me to continue to be passionate about this while I am.
Yeah.
But in your experience, like you say, from doing all these different jobs, how did you go from, like you say, going from this to that to this to that to, you know, jumping around playing hopscotch, to actually being really clear on what you wanted to do? Was it like a kind of a defining moment, or was it actually an accident? I know I love finding out how people actually fell in specifically to that moment where they knew what they were doing.
I would love to say it was trial and error, but it wasn't. Because a lot of the jobs I did along the way, I did enjoy. It wasn't the fact that I didn't enjoy the jobs that I was doing. I just felt I had so much more in me. And I was paying attention to this. Like, it felt like, okay, I think the better way of putting it is I was good at the jobs. There was a lot of jobs I was very good at. And to this day, there are a lot of skill sets that I have from all the jobs that I've done that I can provide to others. You know, like, I'm very good on a computer. I can put through like a self-assessment and do tax online by myself and all that stuff like that. Not a problem. But is that what I want to do for the rest of my life? Would I be proud or happy with myself for sticking to them? No. And that, I'm not undermining those jobs at all. They just don't define who I am as a person. And I think that was why, when like I said, when my granddad sat me down and said, right, okay, where are we actually going? And my answer was, I don't know. And yeah, I hear it all the time. I see it all the time. I'm the eldest of 6. So I've got, yes, 6. I've got 3 little sisters and 2 little brothers who I've very much seen it in some of them. And, you know, they've come and spoken to me about it. And the best answer I can give is you've got to find where your passion lies. So when it came to my mindset coaching, I suffered majorly as a child and as a adolescent with my mental health. I had a lot of upbringing issues. I had a lot of traumatic situations that I had to go through and process from a very young age, that I did the cliche of blaming myself for and punishing myself for, because I didn't fully understand or fully comprehend what was actually happening. And when I did seek help, back then, it wasn't the known thing now. It was very different back then, that because this was one of the situations in particular, which was a big turning point, was I was put into a sexual assault situation, which I'm happy to talk about. Well, not talk about, but to say that was the situation. But this was before all the Jimmy Savile and all of these things. So before then, it was very much not pushed under the rug, but it was not so believed in. You know, people would think that you were making up stories or whatever, and that was a very difficult thing to process, because you hear it so often that you think, well, maybe am I making this up? And then you're like, no, I'm definitely not. And all the challenges that come with that. So I'd been there in that situation where, okay, a lot of people don't go through traumatic situations like that. However, I do believe that there's a lot that goes on for children and especially adolescents, where they don't understand the full concept, because they're not mature enough to understand. They've not got quite an open mind to certain things, and it's a challenging time. And that was why I decided, okay, I need to help some of these. My target audience are some of the younger ones, and older, but my main focus is younger females in particular, who struggle with that process, and helping them to see that, okay, right, there's more to this, and let's try and open our minds to all the possibilities. And if this is the situation, let's talk through it, and okay, right, let's move forward. Whereas the dog grooming side of things is just sheer pleasure, to be quite honest with you. I love the dog grooming. Like, I've got some challenging clients. I've been grooming now for 6 years, and I love it so much. it has been it's one of those things where soon as I did it, it didn't matter what dog I touched or what dog I groomed. I was actually known the groomer of the ungroomables where I last lived before I moved here. That was my nickname. I had two nicknames. I had the Polly Pocket because I'm tiny and I had a big ass mobile van that I had to groom dogs in. And then my other nickname was the groomer of ungroomables. So all the dogs that other groomers didn't want, they would pick up the phone and say, right, we've got a client for you. And I would rock up in my van and yeah, a lot of the I'm yet to have a client that I've not been able to do.
Well, just a trip to Berkshire.
Let's do it.
Down the country, well, when you can, obviously. But honestly, my dog, we're not going to get into it now, but he needs help. Like, I've tried anxiety tablets, I've tried it all. Like, none of it works. The last time he got groomed, we had him sedated. So we could
I've had a few dogs that I've had to sedate. I have to admit, there has been there's not been many. I think I had, back in Edinburgh, I had 4 clients who every time they came in, they had to be sedated because it wasn't fair on them. I mean, you could see how distressed and angry. And I mean, I remember I had an Irish Terrier called Ralph. And he was just the grumpiest old man. That's why every time he came in, the funny thing is he loved me. He loved me so much. And every time he'd see me, you could see he had the grumpy look on his face because he knew what was about to happen. But the tail would go and he'd be happy to see me and all that. As soon as you brought a brush out, that was when he'd go for the jugular. It was never going to happen. And it wasn't fair. So, yeah, I totally get that. Sometimes it is just a matter of...
I know.
Get them in, get them down and get it off.
Yeah, well, exactly. The problem is he grows so bloody fast and he's doing every 4 months. It's a nightmare.
What kind of dog is he?
He's a wire-haired Jack Russell Dachshund cross.
Oh, okay, nice.
Yeah, he's beautiful, but when he's not a mangy mess because he can't get his
head. Bless. What a shame.
Anyway, I'm going to jump back into what you were talking about.
Yeah, go for it.
I could talk about my dogs all day, babe. So, I mean, one of the things you touched on is something I've actually recently posted about. I shared about this last week. I don't think you actually have to love what you do. I don't think you do. Yeah. As long as there is something in your life that you love doing. Yeah. So for a lot of people, they actually really enjoy the 9-to-5 concept of a job that they can tolerate, as it provides the financial support and, I guess, freedom that comes with that. You know, the amount of money they get to live the lifestyle they want to live, whether it's sport, you know, because I know a lot of people are really passionate about sport. They don't necessarily want to go be a PT. What they want to do is have enough money and time so their weekends can be full of sport and they can watch the football on a Wednesday and cricket on a Saturday and they can do all of that. So I don't actually think you need to love what you do, but I think the sad fact is so many people don't love what they do. They don't love anything outside of what they do. And so they find themselves in that monotonous trap. So you've touched on this, you know, you get 2 very different senses of significance and connection from what you do in a completely different way. And, you know, my businesses they're all on kind of the same vein of kind of progression, development, helping people grow. They're all kind of in that space. But actually today I've just signed a contract to work on, I'm an ex-event director, to work on a big international event because they want some specialist help this summer. That's a very different thing. But again, for me, that ticks a box because it's like an achievement. Yeah. What I guess I'm asking you is, in your kind of, on the journey that you've been on and, you know, finding what you have so far, because we're never done, right? Yeah. What kind of tips would you give to somebody who right now maybe doesn't love what they do? Maybe they don't love anything outside of what they do. And they're just feeling that grey, that flatness, that sense of stagnation. What kind of, in your experience, would you share with them on how to get out of that?
Okay, the first thing, and probably the most valuable thing I would say, is find something that you've got. It doesn't have to be, as you say, like, okay, maybe it's not a passion, but maybe some form of interest. Because in my opinion, you're never going to expand in anything if you don't have some form of interest in what you're talking about. Like, it doesn't have to be a matter of it's, you know, you live for it every single day. But so if you've got an interest in what you're talking, it's like a kid at school. They're never going to pay attention in a class that they're not interested in. But you put them in a class that they have got an interest in, you're probably going to find them excel. you know, so it's a very similar situation for us. So find yourself an interest and educate yourself. So if you are in a job right now and it's not filling the bill and all that stuff, and you know, you're stuck working at home and things like that, well, let's take this opportunity. There are so many platforms and ways to learn out there online, and find a course and learn something new in an interest that you've maybe thought to yourself, oh, well, I'm in the job just now, and you know, it keeps me going, it pays the bills. Well, now that I hate to say that we're stuck at home for a while, take this opportunity and take some time to expand your knowledge and grow in a place that you've got interest in. Then on the flip side of that, you need to decide whether you are a work for yourself or work for others, because I've always split people into those two categories. Not everybody's meant to be a business owner. And this is something that I have had to speak to so many people about, because I'm meant to be a business owner. I wasn't meant to work under someone else. Hence the reason I have two of my own businesses and two completely different ventures. And I would never work under somebody again. I've actually had a recent experience of that one, which I'll explain in a minute. But even my other half, who he is a coach, he is a physique coach, and he's very good at his job, and he's always been a very good physique coach. It takes a special kind of person to be a business owner. Very, very special kind of person. But there's nothing then wrong with saying, okay, no, actually, I don't want to start a business. I don't want to start something like that, but I do want to venture somewhere else. So this is why you need to, one, find out where your interests lie. And if you're not in that area, get some courses, work out a direction. And this is what I did I went and did the dog grooming course to decide whether this was what I was going to do. And 6 years later, I'm still here. You know, go and try and find your interest, do some educating, because this is something that people totally overlook. Educate yourself in those areas, and which nowadays is very easy to do. And then make the decision, are you a business owner or are you one to work for others? Because we need both. The world needs both of these people. Neither are better than the other. And then, okay, we've done the education, we've got the interest, and I need to be a business owner. Right, okay, well, if you're going to be a business owner, you got to go and then study business, because I'm telling you now, it's a whole different set of skill sets.
Definitely. You know what, it's really interesting actually. I think if you don't study business, you need someone to help you set up your business. So
100%.
it could be a mentor. You know, like I've got loads of kind of what I call my accountability clients. So we're not working on their personal development. I'm just helping them set up their PT business or set up or take themselves online or whatever it might be. And there are so many people that do that depending on what industry you're in. There are so many hairdressers who are out of the game now. You know, they've built their salons, they're ready to kick back, but they love helping new people get started. And so, you know, look around you for those who have the expertise and the experience. So valid what you said. You know, start where you're interested. You might not be passionate, but start where you're interested. And you can always tell you're interested because time disappears.
Yeah.
And you're looking into it, reading about it, watching about it, stalking on Instagram about it.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's all you need to do. If there's somebody you're following that you're obsessed with, whose stories you watch every 3 seconds, what is it about what they do or who they are or how they are that interests you? And then go pursue that for sure. Yeah. So obviously, Luce, you know, like you've done a shed ton of personal development, you know, as have I, but I would love to know some of, you know, over the years, some of the best books or your favorite, you know, might be books, might be authors, might be podcasts, some of the favorite content. And I know it's hard that you've consumed to kind of, I guess, just get a sense of, you know, the journey you've been on. It's really great to kind of hear the books that have resonated with you most.
Okay, easy peasy. So the very first book that I wouldn't say paid attention to, but the first one that drew my attention was A Chimp's Paradox. That was the first one that I started to read, or I did read, and I found the concept fascinating. But stemming on from that, I then started diving a little bit deeper into my reading, and my favourite book at the time was A Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. And I think anyone who hasn't read it needs to read it. I think I've said this on every single one of the podcasts I've ever done. It is absolutely fantastic, and it gives people a bit of perspective when it comes to how much as a person we can endure. You know, and what having a good understanding of how our minds work can benefit us, and no matter what our situations are. And my favorite quote from that book is, between stimulus and response there is a space, and in that space we have the power to choose how we wish to respond. And it is the power of, basically what it means is, when something happens, we are very quick to react, not respond, react. We react straight away because that's our reflexes, and that's what we're programmed to do. But it's learning, well, actually, you know, someone said something really horrible, you know, we're in the middle of an argument, you know, the world's falling apart, you've had that horrific phone call, whatever it is, instead of reacting, stop, breathe, take a step back, and actually think, well, okay, how do I want to respond, and how do I want to react in this situation that I would be proud of and reflects who I am, and then respond. And it was actually that quote that then I started stemming into Buddhism and mindfulness, and this is something that I am all about right now. I'm not a religious person at all. I wouldn't say, I'm not a religious person at all, not even a little bit. However, what I am is, I would say I'm somewhat spiritual, that I do meditate. I don't meditate the, you know, how everybody perceives you should meditate. I think it's a very individual thing. And the minute you take that woo-woo sense out of it, it actually becomes a lot more helpful, and you know, anyone can do it. It has given my life so much tranquility and equanimity, that I can just process anything without. I still get upset, still get angry, I still have moments where, you know, we all, especially at the moment with everything that's going on, anyone who hasn't struggled through this last year, I'd love to know how you've done it. However, it doesn't get to my core. It doesn't affect me for days, weeks, months. It's, you know, even when I'm upset, I'm still saying good things, and I'm still grateful for things, and I'm still compassionate about myself and where I am and all those people around me. And it's brought so much value to my life that I would 100% recommend A Monk's Guide to Happiness and Buddha's Brain. Those are two really good ones as well. But yeah, I would say those are my 4 go-tos when it comes to reading. I've got loads. I've got
I mean, literally, just, I can see my bookshelf, and I can see over 100 books already. So I totally get it. And you know what? It's so interesting what you say about meditation, because I am the classic hyper productive, always on type person, right? I'm a go-getter. I'm a red personality type. Yeah. I'm like literally category A, right? And one of the things that I've really learned is that I had a perception that to meditate, it had to be this next level spiritual experience. And I actually am quite a spiritual person. I've had many experiences that I cannot explain other than through spirituality. So, but I always thought meditation was just like, I was like, oh, meditation, like the one thing in my daily routine that I was never actually got round to, because I was judging it. And actually, when I realized that meditation was just allowing my mind, allowing the thoughts in my mind to sit away from my actual who I was in that moment, and to see them as traffic. That's how I describe it. So I just sit back, you know, there's people who sit on the side of the road, you know, like counting the number of cars that go, you know, that's how I describe my meditation, is I'm that person. I sit back and I just let my thoughts go, rather than what we normally do, which is attach ourselves to every thought and believe that they're true in that moment. And I absolutely love what you said about that meditation is so personal, and definitely is, because I don't even really, you know, I don't lie down, I just sit down, I just do it wherever I am. I'm just like, right, let's take a minute. So something else you touched on, obviously a chimp paradox is the most, I mean, I'm going to put it out there, the audiobook, Nearly Fell Asleep Driving, his voice doesn't really do it for me, but the concept, I've actually heard Dr. Stephen Peters speak about the chimp paradox, and then subsequently read the book, and it is fascinating how actually, and it's very similar to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and if anyone doesn't know what that is, you can literally Google it, right? And it's very similar that basically, unless you are taking care of the basics, food, water, sleep, security, the things that we all need, you're gonna be a crazy mess. So start with the basics of drinking enough water, getting enough sleep, eating good quality food, and, you know, making sure that, you know, your home situation is taken care of. And I think there's a lot of people chasing the next level goals, or they're chasing success, or, you know, the big shiny shit, I'll call it, and they're not actually nailing the basics. And I think that for me is what the chimp paradox allowed me to understand, which is, unless I take care of my chimp, I cannot self-actualize and become any more than a chimp, because you'll always regret. So fascinating. So you mentioned obviously a quote by Viktor Frankl, and that story, even to this day, blows my mind because of the fact he wasn't alone. There were, you know, there were 3 of them, weren't there? And that he was the only one that made it through that time mentally sane. And that is because he chose to use that time for internal reflection, to master his mind and take control of his thoughts. And I think that is one thing that I have personally experienced in the last 12 months, is that although there have been weeks where I felt like I'm not in control of my own body, let alone my own mind, I think if you can find space in this time, even in the following few weeks, because let's hope it's all going to be over soon, right? If you can find space in that time to do that, the transformation that you will make in a short space of time through mastering your own thoughts will be life-changing. Like, next level life-changing.
I mean, I'll actually give you a small example that I've actually been a hemophobe for my entire, well, I say my entire life. So I've got a phobia of blood. Right, it's really bad, to the point that I can't watch TVs without fainting. Like, even if it's fake, no, seriously, like, it's not even funny. Like, the number of times my partners had to wake me up, and we were watching The Walking Dead, and I actually fainted because they were doing a blood transfusion, and my brain thought it was real, and that was me. I was out cold. My throat closes and everything. It's horrible. However, I had to do a Medicheck before I started prep.
Can I just say, this is such a weird story, because I actually have the exact same story. So I'm just going to let you finish.
Okay. So I had to do a Medicheck. The first one that I tried, it was hilarious. So he got his done within seconds, and me, I was like on the floor, and I was sweating profusely. I think I'd managed to get a dribble, not even a dribble. I didn't even touch the bottom of the frigging file. It was a nightmare, and I fainted, and I felt sick, and it was not a good time. And I calmed down, went away, and I said, right, I'm just going to have to go and get breakfast and get myself sorted. I says, I'll try again tomorrow and all this. And so I went away, calmed down. I started making breakfast, and I was like, how ridiculous am I being? Because I thought to myself, I'm like, right, why am I getting into such a state? Because nothing's happened yet. Like, nothing's happened. Like, I've not cut myself. Like, I'm not in any pain. I've got plenty of blood to spare. I was like, what on earth is going on? So I thought to myself, I was like, no. I was like, I'm getting past this, and I'm getting past this right now. So I did, and I went back, and I just didn't think. I said to myself, right, we're just not going to let any thoughts that come to the front of my mind that start making me feel nauseous, push them back, and we're just not even going to focus on it. We're just going to focus on the task at hand. Boom, full file. I was so proud of myself. I felt so faint afterwards.
Hey, that's so crazy, because last week I did a Medicheck, because I self-test my thyroid, I self-regulate, and I had the same thing. Now, you can inject me, like needles, fine, lip filler, not a problem, right? Like, it can go in, but you start to take it out, no way. And mine actually I was really poorly back in 2012. I had toxic shock, so obviously I was in hospital for a super long time, had a shit ton of blood tests, like, and to the point that, you know, my arms were always black and blue because I had so much blood taken. So it was it's a trauma response, right? It wasn't something I was born with. It's a trauma response. And so I always thought, blood test, but I had a blood test when I was in Dubai doing all my fertility stuff. So, and I was fine because I was, you know, the nurses there, and I was like talking about stuff, and I was just chatting away. And I know that as long as I'm distracted, like fully distracted, you can pretty much take 1 or 2 vials before I pass out. 3rd vial, that's it, I'm done. Blood pressure is gone. I'm out sweating, cold, sick, the whole lot, right? So we get this Medicheck, pinprick thing. I think that'll be a piece of piss. My boyfriend getting to do it for me. He pins my middle finger, because my friend of mine had done hers. Said, do not use your ring finger. It doesn't do anything. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
So I stabbed my middle finger. A, it really hurt. And then B, I literally blacked out on the kitchen floor in about 3 seconds.
Oh.
So then I sat there and I'm getting annoyed. I'm like, what is the matter with me? I'm like, there's no veins in, because veins are a weird topic for me. We're not going to go there.
Yeah.
I was like, what is the matter with me? This is driving me crazy. Like, nothing, to your point, nothing's actually happened.
Yeah.
I said to him, I can't do, the language in my head was, I can't do this. I can't do this. Because obviously fainting is an extremely horrible experience, and it does knock you out for hours. And then I just sat there and I went, fuck this. I was like, we are doing this. He was like, what about lying down? I was like, fine, we're going to lie down on the sofa and stick my arm out and you get to stab me and we're going to get it done.
Yeah.
And the whole time we just, I looked away, we talked about other stuff, but instead, my boyfriend's amazing.
Yeah.
I said, instead of saying I can't do this, why am I doing this? He's like, okay, cool. Why are we doing this test? I was like, because I want to know how my thyroid situation's going, and is my medication where it needs to be, and because I've been having a few tired days, so I wasn't sure. And then he's like, okay, and why do you want your thyroid to be, know your thyroid's good? And I'm like, because when my energy's low, I want to know what to do about that. Or is it self-driven? Am I is it mental? And he's like, okay, so what would it mean if you understood that your thyroid was fine and that your moods were something else? I was like, that I could I could correct that, and therefore I could get better results. He's like, and what would that, why do you want that? And by the time we had got to the end, which is basically so I can just be happier and, not question my health and well-being every 3 seconds, it was done.
Yeah.
And it is so fascinating how your brain will listen to what you tell it.
Yeah, of course. It's so, I always say that this is something that I've got from the book, like the Buddha books that I've been reading and stuff, that there's 3 parts to the brain. There's the self, the observer, and the intruder, but they all serve a purpose. And it's exactly like you said, like when you're meditating, what you were saying before, it's completely individual. Like, you don't have to become aware of these things by sitting in a chair or sat on the floor with your legs crossed and sitting for hours, like not talking to anyone. Like, that's just not, in this day and age, that's just not rational for most people. But by building these relationships with your mind, like, and understanding, well, actually, all these thoughts that keep coming to the front of my head, 9 times out of 10, that's just the intruder, which still serves a purpose, that those thoughts are there for a reason. By evolution, it wouldn't still be there if it wasn't useful. But you've got to understand that you yourself, you're fine. There's nothing wrong. Like, you're reacting over nothing. And that quote from Man's Search for Meaning is exactly what I'm talking about. We were reacting to a situation, to a stimulus, without actually taking the step back. And once we've taken the step back and we're actually thinking, right, okay, we can respond in the way that we want to, not react the way that we're habitual to do so.
Totally. So to close this out, because I'm conscious we've been chatting for like 40 minutes already, I know we could probably talk for 3 hours. So you've obviously mentioned that longer quote from Viktor Frankl's book, but are there any kind of mantras, or are you well known for a certain quote or a certain saying? Like, my team always say to me, Lucy says, if nothing changes, nothing changes. So like, is there something that, you always say, or you catch yourself saying?
Okay, I've got, I do actually have one, because Ross's dad always says it to me as well, because I always say, if there's a will, there's a way. And I will always find a way. And Ross's dad finds me hilarious for saying that. My other saying is also waste not, want not. That is, like, whenever I'm with his mum and dad, one of those two have always been said to me, because I say them a lot. But yeah, waste not, want not. I don't like wasting food at all. But if there's a will, there's a way, and I will always find a way, because I've always got the will to do so. If you want something, there's always a way to do it, and there's always a way to get out of a bad situation. And no matter how difficult or struggling times seem, everyone, we hear it all the time, I'm sick of lockdown, I'm just fed up with the lockdown, I just want to get out of lockdown, I want to get back to normality. Yeah, it sucks, but where there's a will, there's a way, and we will get out of this. There will be a way of getting out of this, and it will happen. And when it does, the future can only be brighter than it is now. You know, I'm not taking away from the current time, but yeah, I would say that's definitely my most prominent saying for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm, like I said, touched on the spirituality piece, and to kind of finish that, Abraham Hicks, one of the best quotes I've ever heard, which is, if you have the wherewithal to believe in it, the universe has the wherewithal to make it happen. And I'm like,
absolutely.
you know what? I absolutely trust that. There are so many times in my life that cannot be explained other than universal intervention or universal support, shall we say. And you know what? I think, Lucy, we've had such an amazing chat today. I know that people who are, you know, in that space of loss right now, maybe career transition, and maybe anyone with a phobia of blood, right, will relate it to what we've talked about today. Maybe it's just because we're short. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's a short.
Maybe that, yeah, we've got less blood to give away.
Lucy thing. Maybe we should canvass all the Lucys that we know and see if they have blood phobia.
Oh my God, that'd be hilarious.
Love it. Lucy, thank you so much for joining us. Final question, where can people find you on social media?
Of course. So mainly people find me on Instagram, and I'm just Lucy_mindset coach. I've also got my podcast, which is the Transformation Mindset. I'm also found on Instagram for my mindset coaching. On the podcast, it's got its own separate one, which again is just at Transformation Mindset Podcast. And that's pretty much it, because I don't really use Facebook or anything else. I like to try and keep everything close knit.
Love it. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
That was the way that we see it.